There's a finer grid called grid, so you're free to use any of these you want. For now, I'm going to leave it set to none. We have a shield color. We'll toggle this off, and you can see that the shield color applies a separate overlay to the area that is going to be removed, the area that is going to be cropped out. That's helpful. It gives you a little visual idea of what your image is going to look like by blocking out the material that you're going to crop. We can choose a color for that shield. Right now it's set to black, and it has an opacity of 75%, which is great because we can still see through it in case we need to make fine-tuning adjustments. Now if we go, I'll drag this out to the bottom. To commit to this crop, you can simply press the return or enter key on the keyboard, or on the PC we can right-click, control-click on the Mac and select crop. And there we have our crop. I'm going to undo this with Control-Z on the PC and Command-Z on the Mac, because there's something else I want to show you. We just did a freeform crop, but suppose you want to crop to a specific ratio or perspective. In the width and height box, I'm going to type in numbers. For the width, I'll put in a 4, and for the height, I'll put in a 5. Now, when I drag with the crop tool, I am automatically constrained to a 4:5 proportion. So if I had to fit this for a magazine layout, for example, and their pages were spec'd for a 4:5 ratio, I could automatically crop to that perspective and know that my image is going to fit. I'm going to cancel out of this with a right click on the PC, control click on the Mac. Now, those of you who've been paying attention, I'll zoom into this a little bit more, may notice that this image is not level, it is not straight. When you use the crop tool, I'll draw it again, you have the option, if you move the cursor over one of the corners, you get this double bent arrow tool, and that lets you adjust the crop and move it, and you can use that to straighten out an image, but it's a very imprecise method. So here's how we're going to do it. We're going to go back to the tool panel, and we're going to choose the ruler tool. The ruler tool is hidden underneath this eyedropper tool. So we'll go here and select ruler. Now this is great because we simply click on something that should be straight. I'm going to use the top edge of this building. I'm going to click on the left corner and drag over towards the right corner. I've now drawn a line over an item that should be straight but that is currently crooked. In the tool options bar, I have a straighten button. If I click straighten, watch what happens. It not only straightens the image, it crops off the excess area of the image that it had to do to eliminate any white spaces. So that's a great, easy, one-step way to straighten an image and crop it at the same time. If you don't want the image to be straightened and cropped all in one step, here's a little trick. You can hold down the Alt key on the PC, Option key on the Mac, while you press the straighten button, and the image will only be straightened. It will not be cropped. You'll end up with something that looks like that, and you can crop it manually. We can make an image appear warmer or cooler by adjusting the color balance. Photoshop offers two tools that make this a snap. Let's open up an image. We're going back to our Chapter 3 folder, and we're going to open up our old friend, the garden image that we first saw in Chapter 1. Now, there are two ways that we can adjust the color balance. The first way is in the Image menu, Adjustments, and we'll go down to Photo Filter. Now, this brings up a preset selection of filters that mimic what photographers used to carry out into the field with them. We're starting here with a warming filter, but if we click on the pull-down menu, we've got 3 warming filters here to choose from. I'll choose warming filter 81. That should give us a good difference, and I'll toggle off the preview. There's where we started. Here's that warming filter. We could also go cooler. I'll go down here and select cooling filter 82, for example, and you can see, here's the preview off, here's the preview on. You can see just how far we can go with these filters. Now within these preset filters, you can adjust their strength by moving the density slider. If you drag the density slider to the left, you are decreasing the effect of that filter. If you drag it to the right, you're making that filter appear even stronger. So you've got a lot to play with here, and simply by clicking through this menu, you can go warm to cool in just a couple of steps. Let's cancel out of this, and now we're going to look at our second method. We're going to go back to Image, Adjustments, and this time we'll select Color Balance. Now this works with 3 sliders that move between 6 primary colors. If we want to warm the image, we simply go along towards the red. In the second slider, we'll maybe move a hair towards magenta, and in the third, we'll move towards yellow. Here's the preview off. Here's it on, so you can see it definitely warms up the image. Under tone balance, we want to stay on midtones. This is going to be the most realistic approach. It's going to focus our efforts in the midtones of the image and taper off nicely into the highlights and shadows. If we wanted to cool this image, we could go towards the cyan end a little bit. Maybe we'll take a little bit of magenta out that we did, but the big one is we're going to go from yellow over to blue. And if we toggle the preview on and off here, there's where we started, and now we have a much cooler image. So we've got two quick and easy ways to adjust the color balance in Photoshop. Photoshop offers a great tool for converting images from color to black and white. Let's open up an image. We're going to go back to our Chapter 3 folder, and this time we're going to open up the file labeled BW, short for black and white. Now with this image on screen, what I'm going to do is select the Fit to Screen view. The shortcut for that is Control-0 on the PC, Command-0 on the Mac, to get it just a little bit bigger on our screen. And the tool we're going to use for this conversion is named, appropriately enough, Black and White. It's located in the Image menu, under Adjustments, and we'll simply scroll down and select Black and White. As soon as this dialog box opens, it gives you a default black and white conversion. I'll toggle the preview off. Here's our color information, and here's the default conversion. There's also an auto button that you can choose. If you're not happy with the default, you can see if the auto gets you to a better starting point. But for now, we can just go back to default because we're going to do all of this manually. Now in other tools that we looked at, we had an on image adjustment tool that we had to click and select. Here in black and white, it's turned on and activated by default. So all we have to do is move our mouse over the image. I'm going to move it here over this area of the chair, and if I simply click and hold down the mouse, you can see the icon turning into the hand with left and right arrows. More importantly, in the black and white dialog box, you can see that the yellow value is highlighted. If I click and drag to the left, you can see those numbers go down, and the yellow parts of this image are getting darker. If I click and drag to the right, the yellow parts are getting brighter. Why yellow? Well, because I clicked on an item in the image that was yellow. Yellow was the underlying color information. So just because Photoshop gives you a black and white preview of the image doesn't mean it forgets the colors that were in this image. That's the beauty of the black and white tool. It lets you make image adjustments based on the underlying color information. If I go here and click on this chair, you can see that that's going to select blues primarily. So I'm going to slide this to the left to darken that blue value. Maybe I'll brighten it up a little bit. I changed my mind. I'll go a little bit brighter there. I'll select on this chair, and let's see what color is underneath there. That's red. What happens if we drag to the left? We're making those much, much darker. Notice that the yellow chair and the blue chair have been left alone. The table was also red, so that's getting darker. Let's go back here and find another color. In this foliage, let's click here and see if we can find a green color. We have green here, so we're simply going to click and let's lighten this up a bit. So we're going to open up those greens in there. And so with just a few clicks of the mouse, you can see that we can drastically alter the contrast in this image simply by changing tones based on their underlying color information. Let's go back for a minute, toggle the preview off. Here's the color information that we started, so you can see the individual discrete colors we have in the image of reds, blues, yellows, and greens, and now we've adjusted the brightness of all those values. Now there's another thing we can do with the black and white tool, is we can tint the image. Once we're happy with this black and white conversion, we can go down and click on this tint box. And let's see how this works. We've got hue and saturation. The important thing when you're working with this tool is to boost your saturation up. It has to be very high so you can see the changes that you're making in hue. We're ultimately going to come down from this, so don't worry about your colors looking exactly right. Here the saturation is very high, but that's just so we can find a nice hue. If we wanted to get a nice sort of sepia print, we'll come over here. That's a little bit too much red. We'll add a little yellow in there, something about like that. Now to make it look real, we will bring the saturation down, way down. And if we come down here just to about 7%, you can see we've got a nice sepia toned image. If we wanted a cooler image, we can take this hue and drag it over towards the blue end, get a much cooler rendering of the image, something about like that. If that looks a little bit too strong, a little bit too cold for you, we can take the saturation slider and bring that down even further, down to about 3%, so we just have a slightly cool image. So within one dialog box, we can take the image from color to black and white and even perform a tint.